Always from the very start we aimed for Romania to be the role model. How are you doing it? Because there isn't a culture of recycling.
And how did you do it?
85% in October. We are now collecting a higher collection rate than the Netherlands. The system, it'll take 2 to 3 years for the system to be mature and running smoothly. Well, the first thing is the results we have today are outstanding. So today we have collected so far 2.7 billion containers, beverage containers from the market. People were in queues and they did complain, but they kept coming back because they wanted it to work. You're talking about thousands of jobs. When we look back in the summer, which is at the peak season, we had more than 1,300 trucks on the road.
Bună ziua și bine ați venit la podcastul Green Report de această dată, nu pentru prima dată și cu siguranță nu pentru ultima dată. Vom vorbi și despre sistemul de garanție returnare, SGR, în engleză DRS, și o să înțelegeți în curând și de ce DRS o să-l folosim astăzi în discuția cu invitatul meu special, pentru că este cel mai mare proiect de economie circulară din România și pentru că ne impactează pe toți în fiecare zi, prin alegerile pe care le facem și prin modul în care învățăm să răspundem la acest serviciu, că spune că e un serviciu, nu numai pentru noi românii, dar și pentru mediu. Așadar, mă bucur extrem de mult să am alături de noi astăzi pe CEO al Returo, cei care se ocupă de sistemul garanție returnare în România, Gemma Webb. Welcome to Green Report Podcast. It's lovely to have you over here.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here.
So you are the iron lady between the DRS system in Romania, the one which said, okay, this is a challenge, it never have been done in Romania, let me do it. How does it feel after 1 year, personally, and then, of course, we will go into the subject.
Personally, it feels really good. It was a really challenging year, but a year where the support that I got from all of my team, from all the suppliers, from the authorities, from the producers, from the retailers, and from the Romanian citizens. It's been fantastic because everybody has come together to create a movement. And this is why, and it's this movement that makes you feel good, and success breeds success, that helps you to keep going on a daily basis to bring this to life.
So still a very optimistic, I think a bit tired at the end of the year. It was a huge challenge because you had to really build this system from scratch, the team, the whole logistics centers, which are the counting and recycling fields from where it goes to recycling afterwards, but also the whole communication campaign and getting all stakeholders, as you say, on the table. I remember last year's first discussion when we were struggling on let it go, which is the date or not. I remember the Minister of Environment was pushing very hard and put a lot of pressure on all the stakeholders which are in Returo's company to really make it start. You think it was a good moment to start end of November 2023, or you think it was wiser to let it another 2-3 months?
Look, for to set up a deposit return system in any country, it normally takes 2 to 3 years. In Romania, the deposit return system is the largest fully integrated system globally and the most complex. So just putting it into context, we have here in Romania 19 million citizens, 85,000 retailers. We have 2,000 to 3,000 importers and producers, all coming together to bring this system to life. So it's hugely complex. And to force that into a short space of time made it exceptionally difficult. However, it's working. And we have to look at the results and be very proud of what has happened and how the Romanian citizens have really come behind this project and this initiative.
So in fact, it's a big congratulations for all stakeholders involved to really collect out of the 7 billion containers that we need. This is our target. Yeah?
Yes.
Where are we today? Let's talk a bit numbers.
So today we have collected so far 2.7 billion containers, beverage containers from the market across glass, plastic and aluminium, which is fantastic. So the Romanian consumers have returned 2.7 billion containers, we have collected them from retail. We have brought them to our sorting and counting centres, where we've sorted them into the different materials, into the different colours. And what's fantastic is we have sold 177,000 tonnes of these materials to recyclers to be put back into the system, and already a lot of this material is back in to produce raw materials and back into new packaging, which is a full circular economy.
And this is what we wanted to talk about, the circular economy. So what we have, this secondary material, is the rPET. Why is it so important, and who is the consumer of this kind of material?
So this secondary material, so what we sell is let's take a clear PET bottle. Okay, for any soft drinks, clear PET bottle, we compact that into bales and we sell that material then to the recyclers. They take the material and they process it back into flakes. These flakes are then put back in to make the new bottles. So this as the bottle then that goes on the shelf. And these can be used, I think it's 12, 13 times. This material can be used to reproduce new bottles. So it's the recycled PET that's really important.
So this is why we do it, in fact.
Yes.
This is the environmental part. But the environmental part, and we talk about ESG, has also the S part, the social part.
Yes.
What I found amazing about this system that you built over here with all the stakeholders was also the circular economy based on how many jobs it created. And not only in Returo itself, which I'm also interested in, but on the whole value chain.
Yes, and this is one of the other benefits because, as you say, there is the environmental benefit, which we see it's not on the streets, there's no bottles on the streets and rivers. The economic benefit is really good as well. It really has a positive economic impact on the environment. In direct employment, we have over 800 green jobs directly in Returo today, between the head office and our 7 counting and sorting centres. In addition to that, you have the secondary indirect impact. And this is where we have the transporters. So these are they're fully engaged in the collection and the transporting of these goods to our factories, and also the transporting from our facilities to the recyclers, etc. And here you're talking about thousands of jobs. When we look back in the summer, which is at the peak season, we had more than 1,300 trucks on the road. Each truck has got a driver and has got a helper. So this is how many? 2,000, nearly 3,000 green jobs in the transporting. Then in addition to that, you've got all of the other ancillary businesses which are involved in the whole process. So it has a huge economic impact. And this is something that we're looking at today, and it's something next year we'll look even more at the economic impact and what else can be done.
But though we have to look also at the environmental impact, because on the one hand we have the collection and the recycling, wonderful. On the other hand, we have to look also in the balance sheet of the environmental impact regarding the transport carbon footprint, because we have this, you said 1,300 trucks a day, it's gigantic. I think it's the biggest logistic project of Romania. So therefore, this has to be also calculated now also with the new CSDR rules. How do you think to mitigate and to talk about this subject so that we maintain a positive environmental balance?
This is exactly right. And we want this DRS system in Romania, we want Romania to be the role model. So far, we've done super well. We've collected over 84% of what went on the market in October has been collected, which is amazing results. So we're better than other countries that have been doing this for many years already. The next phase is the sustainability, environmental sustainability. It is looking at the CO2 emissions. It's looking at every element of our process and the complete life cycle and the system that we have and what impact it has. Today, we are doing an assessment, a sustainability assessment on every single part of the operations to look at how we can make that more sustainable and put that plan in place.
Nevertheless, it's a project which is not mature yet. So I remember that you talked about the 7 sorting and collection centers, but I know that you will have to launch another 2 next year. So in fact, to reach the goal of 9. So we talk about being in a not mature project, but still trying to get in the same time all the sustainability indicators. How do you manage this?
This we have to do simultaneously. And I think with a project like ourselves, when you're at the start of it, which we are, it's easier to adapt as you go. I think it's more difficult if you have an established business that's running for 20, 30 years to then start to change practices.
So you are fine-tuning right now. It's like, this is working good, we do more. This is not so good, we take it out of the system. Is it like this going right now?
Yeah, it's like this because...
Trial and error.
Trial and error. And it's like been like this all the way along. Because, as you mentioned, this is a startup. So we went live in...
Huge startup,
a huge startup. And we went live in November 30th. But on the previous year, November 2022, I was the first employee. And then it was no phone, no computer, nothing. So at my kitchen table, we didn't have an office. So then it was to bring in the team because people are the most important. You cannot do anything without people. Then getting finance, and there was the whole process being implemented. So we had to do everything simultaneously. And when you're doing that simultaneously, you get used to multitasking. And now the first year was about implementation. Getting the finance and all of that. Then this year was about implementing. Next year has got to be about making the system effective, efficient, cost-effective. It has to be cost-effective, and also sustainability. So the 2 key things for next year is about cost-effectiveness, efficiency, and sustainability. When we're making those decisions, and it's behavior and it's culture, when we're making those investment decisions and to look at being cost effective, we also have to look at the sustainability element. And this is something culturally. Being a startup, you can start by having that perspective. And yes, you're right. We have, if you look today at the sustainability element, then we have a huge task ahead of us. But it was a huge task as a startup. So I am completely confident with the support of everybody and the guidance and doing the right thing, good things always happen. So I think it'll be a good challenge, and it should be a role model. And it would be fantastic for Romania to be a role model.
We'll come back to this role model because I remember that this year we had many sites visit from international delegations. What were the lessons learned for you and for them? Why they came, first of all? I mean, like, they come to Romania in a new startup project to learn what? Why they are coming?
The challenge we had was never done before. So having the challenge of speed, we had very little time to implement this. So people came, first of all, because the size and the scale, the speed we were running at, and they came to see what we were doing. Because what we've done is we've invested in the latest technology. We always, from the very start, we aimed for Romania to be the role model, to achieve going from a 13% return rate, from a 13% recycling rate for generally, to move us up to hit the European targets of a minimum of 65%. So this, in a very short space of time, we wanted to do. They wanted to come to see how we were doing it. And particularly, we started to get results very quickly. And this they wanted to see. How are you doing it? Because there isn't a culture of recycling.
And how did you do it to get these results very quickly?
The key elements for success is, one, cooperation. Cooperation and a movement to be created with the authorities, great legal framework. It was solid legal framework is the word. Working, the authorities supporting us, producers supporting us through every single step of the way, the retailers through all of the time of difficulties, where getting the machines in on time, when there's queuing, for the retailers to support us, have patience, to look at what they can do to make things better. Suppliers delivering, and literally whatever they needed to do, they did to make things happen on time. But the real heroes of the story are the Romanian citizens, because this was the unknown. how would the people of Romania react? And they were amazing, because to have such a high return rate, it cannot be done without the people of Romania.
And why do you think it happened like this? Was it because if you look at the statistics also before the DRS system, everybody was declaringly, yeah, I do waste collection. At that time it was waste. Now we talk about packaging, collection. But at the end, 98% of Romanians declared, looking at the statistic, that they do it. The reality in the Eurostat statistic, where we were at 11% or 14%, depending on which kind of fraction we are looking at. So these discrepancies about reality and what we declare, was it something because I felt ashamed of saying, I don't care, I don't do it, it's too much struggle, I don't believe in the system, and finally I get a system I can trust and believe? Or was it the financial motivation of the guarantee? What do you think was more important?
I think it's a number of different things, and it's not just one. I think first of all, what the deposit return system has done, it's put in the infrastructure to make it easy for the consumers, for the people of Romania to return the containers. So it's easy because now they can return to any retailer. And this is important. It should be easy. And we've put that infrastructure in place to make it easy for every single consumer to return. That's one element. The other element is the financial incentive. This has also made a difference. And you have to have both, and this is the learning from other markets as well, other countries as well. The financial incentive is important because it gives that added benefit and encouragement, and also it's a reward, because when you go back, I don't know if you've done, but when you go back and you put your bottles in, it's nice to get the ticket.
It's true. It's a good
it's
feeling.
A good feeling, because it feels it's not just about the money, but you're doing something right, and the money goes with it.
So for the consumer, it was the carrot, but for the producers or the retailer, they felt it at least at the beginning like a stick. Yeah.
Yes.
How is it today? When we looked also in the first quarter of the reports that you put out in Returo, and there were some counties, that were not performing so well. What was it something special, regional specific, the hesitation, or was it something that it had to do with the structure in the infrastructure? What was the struggle over there?
The struggle really was, it's a very short space of time we're looking at. And when we look at Romania, you have the retail infrastructure and the geographical situation. You have the rural and the urban. And rural is 50% in terms of the retail environment. And it takes time. Things normally start in urban, and in Bucharest, the return rate, it's 16% of the overall containers coming back come from Bucharest, with Constanța, and that afterwards like 5%.
So the big cities are the leaders.
The big cities are the leaders, and that's where trends normally start. And over time, the rural areas start to develop as well and start to get involved. Our focus now is on the rural areas to ensure and to engage the smaller retailers for them to get involved in the system, and that'll be our focus now over the next number of months.
So you talked at the beginning of our discussion about 86,000 retailers. We don't talk about the 19 million people. It's maybe sometimes even easier to talk with 19 million people. I don't know. I think that your communication PR team had a huge effort to make them in this reciclării. It was the whole advertising about. But what about the retailers? Because you said we are now focusing on the rural areas, where we have, in fact, all over Romania, two options: to have the machines, which comes with a cost for the retailer, that he will then write over in his books, but in time, and it means that he has to have this cash flow. Second option is to really collect them in the big plastic bags and then get it to the counting machine. Where do you see the struggle of the smaller retailer, and why?
Yes, the smaller retailers have been struggling to really get involved in the system. Firstly, and quite understandably, the system is new. And
they didn't trust it.
And for them to get involved, they wanted to see see how it's evolving. And this is very normal. This is very normal. So the larger retailers were putting in the machines, and now the machines are working, everything is working. Also, during June, July and August, it was peak time. For us, it was our first year. We didn't know where we'd collect the first bag from. So the button was pressed and everything moved. So for us during that time, we had a lot of challenges in terms of collection. So
where to send the trucks.
So we had smaller retailers who had started collecting, but we hadn't collected for them. So they'd be waiting maybe 3 or 4 weeks to get collected. And this wasn't right. So we lost some small retailers along the way because of this. And then other smaller retailers said, okay, we'll wait. This is normal. Now everything is working really well in terms of the logistics, and it has been for a number of months. So now, slowly but surely, we're getting more and more smaller retailers involved. So every week, hundreds of retailers are now starting to engage in the system. And that's why I'm saying the focus now has got to be working with those smaller retailers so they are comfortable with the system. We're supporting them as much as possible, so we fully engage. This is important because every single Romanian citizen should have it easy for them to recycle.
And this you bring me up, you throw the ball to the easiness. Yes. We saw, unfortunately, the Romanian population can be also thicky about how it engaged with the system and also commenting on it. First, it was the enthusiasm of the children wanting to put the bottles, especially in the machine-driven collection. And then it was a frustration that I'm putting all this bottle the whole week, and then at the weekend I'm going to the big retailer and I stay in a queue to put it. It comes with frustration. Do you have the feeling that you lost possible candidates or citizens on this, or how do you deal in the communication? What are the experience of other countries regarding this?
So firstly, the experience of other countries is exactly the same. And this was one of the reasons that I encouraged some of the CEOs to come here, and we actually did interviews with them so people could see this was normal. When a system starts, you don't know, as I said, how much is going to be collected, where to send the trucks, do we have enough reverse vending machines? All of these things were happening. And because we did it in such a short space of time, it was guesswork. We had a plan, but it was a plan on paper, and then market reality happened. But what was really good is people were in queues and they did complain, but they kept coming back because they wanted it to work. And now we don't have this issue with queues anymore. There's more reverse vending machines in the market. We have more and more retailers participating. So it's getting easier and easier for people to recycle. So the Romanian consumer has resilience, and they didn't give up. They didn't give up, which was good. Fantastic.
That's very good.
Because if you look for October, 85% in October, we are now collecting a higher collection rate than the Netherlands, who's at 70%. So this is the Romanian consumer, so they stuck with it and they made it happen.
But usually the expectation of the consumer, the majority of the time, is unrealistic. Once a system is in place, because once it's in place, it should work 100%. Yes. But on the other hand, this information, it's not coming the same out as I stayed in a queue for 20 minutes to put my bottles in the reverse vending machine, as Romania is collecting on the month of October more than the Netherlands. Finally, this is not coming, it's not reaching the consumer as it should, because it comes with a personal proudness as well.
Yes.
We should do this more often.
Yes.
What other lessons did you learn from other, I remember you mentioned Norway at one point, about communication and the impact on consumer education, willingness to bring the cans back in the system. How does it look in the extremely evolved environmental and social aware countries?
You're absolutely right. The consumer communication campaigns are very important. One of the key successes, and you asked me about lessons learned, one of the lessons learned that we have this year is the importance of the consumer communication and the campaign that we run. It was one that everybody enjoyed and got involved in, and because it looked at Romanians' traditions and it was the hearts and the minds. So this was fantastic. What we see in Norway, who've been running this for more than 20 years, is you need to continue consumer communication. Because what they saw is when they reached 95, 98%, it's such a high target level to be maintained. You need to keep the consumer communication live because you need to build on the emotion.
Do it?
It's through consumer communication campaigns, encouraging the retailers, working with the retailers.
But they do it for 20 years. I mean, like, at one point we say, okay, we are not educated. We need to educate the new generation in the hope that they will have a more responsible and sustainable way of acting on all the stages of what they what their interest is pursues or what they want to do. But 20 years later, you still need to come after them and say, come on, bring your bottle. It's good for the nature. It's good for you. It's good for the community. When does it stop? Or why? Or what do we need to shift in our mentality to really say, okay, I don't need a push from behind?
It's not so much a push. It's more an encouragement. At that stage, it's more a reminder and it's more an encouragement. And that's what we see. And when I look at the campaigns, the advertising, basically the advertising through TV and radio, they're more emotion. They're more built on having the local music, the local artist supporting. So it's just a reminder.
That it's a national thing, that it's a more community thing, that it's ours?
It's on different levels, and this is what we'll need to do next year. So yes, definitely a national, but also in terms of communities and looking at more involvement in the communities. You know, you talked about lessons learned, and when we look at the change that's impacted on every single person in Romania through the implementation of this system, in everybody's kitchen, you know, I've got bottles. I had so many calls, so many friends said, Gemma, what are we doing with these bottles? Tell me, what do I do in my kitchen? So we've impacted every single person's life. And change, there's always a resistance to change from all of us. Absolutely. And this is the other thing we should be proud of. In Romania, everybody has adapted. And they said, okay, it's good for us, it's good for the community, it's good for our environment, it's good for this generation, the next generation. It is the right thing to do. So people have adapted. The communication side is a continuous reminder. And this is why it's important.
Good. Communication is one part. You mentioned before that for next year's 2025, focus will be on efficiency, sustainability, impact analysis, and communication.
Yes.
Nevertheless, it is run like a business, but it's a not-for-profit business. Can you please develop a bit this answer about, because people said, okay, the majority come on, it's a huge business. Again, other people will get very rich. What are we talking here about?
So what we mean, it's not for profit, so we do not make a profit. When you make a profit, you take money out of a business and you give it to your shareholders. So with Returo, we're not for profit. So any money that is made, it's put back in to make the system more efficient and more effective. So we do not take money out and give it as dividends to anybody. We have three sources of income. We have the source of income from the sale of raw materials. So the sale of the PET, the aluminium cans and the glass that we collect and sort and compact, we sell that to recyclers, and this is a source of income. The second source of income is from the producers, the industry fee. The producers pay us an industry fee, and they cover the difference between our operating costs and so we don't make a loss. So they cover that gap between our costs.
Can you please explain for those which are listening to us, why is it important that they cover it and why are they willing to do it?
Because the producers are the one that's put the packaging on the market, so they have a responsibility to the environment, and for them, and part of their strategies and the core of their business is sustainability. So it's important that this packaging is recycled, reused and put back into the system, and this is part of their strategies, and the producers are willing to pay for that. they're willing to pay and support the DRS because it's one of the most efficient and effective systems to achieve these results of recycling. And so that's our second source of income. And the third source of income then is the unredeemed deposits. This is when we get to, like, we're at 85% collection rate now, and this will continue into the 90s next year. I'm absolutely convinced. And here it'll be a small part, but it is a part of the system that is a revenue.
So what is this in a percentage? Because people said, I know, so less people are going to bring the bottles, they will get rich because of this guarantee. It's not redeemed guarantee.
The guarantees, so when we get the deposit, at the moment we're learning how long it takes for those containers to be returned. So if we look at different categories, it takes longer, other categories shorter. So if you talk about soft drinks, then they might be returned bottles after purchase, consumption. We might get them back maybe after 6 weeks. Because if you look at the cycle, the supply chain cycle, so when the producers, I'm struggling not to mention a brand, so when the producers put the product into the market.
You can say brands because it's a podcast. You can say whatever brands.
Okay.
No problem.
So when the producers, your Coke and Pepsi, put the products onto the market, they either go directly to the warehouses of the stores, or they go into wholesalers or distributors if they're out into the countryside. So they will be there for a week or so, then they get on the shelf, then they'll be purchased maybe another week, then consumed maybe another week, and then the consumer brings the container back. So you're talking about a period maybe 4 to 6 weeks. That's for those products. If you look at products that take a bit longer, like your wine and spirits, it could be a year. So
good wine has to stay.
Good wine has to stay, exactly. Good wine has to stay. So if you look at the spirits, it could be a year. So we're currently assessing how long it takes, what's the cycle, the lead time from putting the product on the market for us to get the bottle back. And that varies, and it's an assessment. Today, what we're saying is 95% of the products, we're paying back. So 85% we're paying back to the consumer. Next year, when we'll get into the 90s, then of the deposits that we get, 90% will be going back. So you're only talking about 10% there. So this is a matter of learning as well.
So we talked about the 3 sources of income for you.
Yes.
And you said also that let's say the excedent of the economical exercise is not paid to the stakeholders like dividends, but it's reinvested in the system with the aim to make it more efficient and more sustainable.
Yes.
Does it also including communication campaign, opening maybe other kind of sorting machine,
Yes.
or what is the future? Like, let's say people think about this 7 billion containers, multiplied by 0.5. This is the mathematics they do.
Absolutely.
And I said it's 3.5 billion lei.
Yes.
Which sounds, and it is an amazing amount of money. How do you go in the communications towards the public?
So when we look at the cost structure, so if we talk about the cost structure, the 2 big cost areas is one is the handling fee that we pay retailers. So the idea of this system is that it doesn't cost anybody. The producers fund it, but it doesn't cost. So we pay the retailers a handling fee. So in addition to the deposit that we give back to the retailers when they collect from the consumer, we also pay them a handling fee. And this is the largest part of our costs. The second element then is the logistics, because it's huge, as you said, it's one of the largest logistics projects initiatives in Romania. So this is the second area of costs. So when we look at that cost, and then we balance that cost with the industry fee. The deposit is already being paid back now to the consumer. So there's very little left in terms of the deposit. And when you look at the deposit return systems in other countries, exactly the same thing happens in the first year, because it takes time for people to understand and to get into the habit of bringing the bottles back. It's a ramp-up year. So
when will be the system mature from your point of view, taking on the Romanian experience of the first year?
Yes, it'll take 2 to 3 years for the system to be mature and running smoothly. So next year, we'll still be learning, Because, as I said, we have the cost element, the efficiency and effectiveness to bring in, the sustainability to bring in. We'll also be learning, because also we have to get it working really well in the rural areas. And that over the next month, 6 months, we'll be learning how to do that, how to have it more effective.
You talked about the importance of the dialogue also with authorities, and you go back, I'm going back to the rural part that's difficult to engage. On the one part, the retailers, are all producers are already engaged or registered? Producers are done, yeah?
Yes.
We still are on the chapter or on the retails. How many of the 82,000 retailers are now registered in the DRS system?
We have over 75,000 registered.
Okay, so we
the
struggle
retailers-
with 12,000 that are stubborn right now.
Yes, exactly.
Good. Going back to, do you think it's also a method not only to put in the system, explaining them, because I know that you had different campaigns this year on going really one-to-one to all the retailers, explain the benefits, explain how it functions, to take the fear away, because usually it's this fear of change, as you mentioned. Do you think it's now necessary that the state, through its authorities, and I talk about the National Guard of Environment, Garda de Mediu, which is like the stick in this case, should be involved and start to go and make really, to look into it and say, okay, guys, it's passing a year, it's time that you start to enroll. It's a law. It's not just, it's a law enforcement here.
Yes, this is the thing. It is a law, and laws have to be abided by. But at the same time, we need to support, because it's a huge change, and you have small businesses and they need our support to help them to get into the habit and to make it efficient for them. So it's both working together, and this is what we have to do over the next
Maybe it
number
was
of
also
months.
much better that not everybody engaged from the beginning, and it was an operational chaos. I can imagine that it was a bit like a struggling, because the reality on the countryside in the rural areas is totally different than in urban areas in terms of quantity, management, and so. And you were mentioning something very important, I think, for the retailers, the fact that now you start to have a very clear, predictable cash flow, because the question which comes next is, which is the time a retailer has to pay in advance the guarantee to the consumers. What is the time frame that he gets the money back from the Returo, the DRS system?
And this is something that we need to work on even more for the smaller retailers, because those that are collecting in bags, we collect the bags from them. So they pay the consumer, we collect the bags from them, and we have to count those containers, and then we pay based on what we count.
Where do you count?
We in our 7 counting and sorting centres.
Okay, but so I'm just making the case study.
Please.
So I'm a retailer on the rural area. I have here my bags with my my containers. I said these are 300 containers.
Yes.
Because I count them, because I get the money, and it's also official. I pay 300 guarantees. Here they are, and then they arrive in your counting center, and then you count 270.
Yes, so we count, we have the machines who read the barcode, and we also have a person checking. So those bottles, if there's 70 supplied, and let's say only 69 are read, one of those bottles will be exited from the machine. So we have people there, they'll pick up that bottle and they'll see it. If it's a DRS bottle, they will register it.
Okay, so this
is
year
how
we
it
have to
works.
put it away. It's not these stories that I put 300, they give me less money, and it's important because people don't understand it correctly.
Absolutely. Now, what I will say is, remember, we were starting this year. Machines were new. People were new.
System was new.
System was new. Everything was new, and everything started together, you know. And with our first counting and sorting centre that we opened in Cluj this time last year, we hadn't done it before. The people there hadn't done it before. So there will have been challenges especially over the summer, with the manual collection and with the manual counting and the payment. And we have been contacting all of those retailers to make sure everything has been done properly. But it was manual. We didn't have an IT system up until March,
I
April.
don't understand. You were really full of courage to start without the IT system, really.
And everything was being done manually with our own computers. So and now things are working, and now it's the momentum is fantastic. So that's why we have to go back now and encourage the smaller retailers to work with us.
Absolutely. But looking back, November 2023, what would you have been changed if you had the possibility then for having other results today? If there is anything you could have been changed?
Well, the first thing is the results we have today are outstanding.
That's true.
And and really doing better than those results, I don't know what's possible. It could have been easier, and it could have been if we had got the time, because we didn't have the time to set this up properly. Okay, we should have had a minimum of 18 months, because smaller countries who are a third of our size take 2 years to set this up. We didn't have 2 years. So that's why we asked for the extension at the time. So if we had that
but
time...
But why was this ambition? Okay, it was a political ambition, but still, you put you put political ambitions before the security and the success of a system?
This I can't comment on, but what I
can. That's why I'm on this chair, with the microphone. Because this is something about, we talk about sustainability, which comes also together with social, ethical governance, understand politics. And you know that I'm very critical also in the business conference, that I'm very happy that you are joining us all the time. But the question is, when we learn the lesson, not to put the pressure on the business and the society and let politics be politics and give the time. So this is the question, when do we learn it?
You can challenge this the other way. Because we've achieved the results, the debate could be, if we gave you more time and gave you another 6 months, yes, it was never ready, and also maybe there would be some interference in the system that would have stopped you from being successful. Because you didn't have a choice, because you had to go with it, everybody questioned, would it be a success? You went and you did it. So maybe if there was more time, there'd be more interference to stop it from being a success. So there's many debates, but hindsight, it's not a simple one, because the results are there.
Yes, because of the team who was doing it. It was the result, as you said, of all stakeholders, but especially of Returo, who would do it. If the results were not good, let's say, and we were not here today where we are, the topic was totally different. And then the whole system was in a big danger.
Yes, it was a risk. It was a huge risk. Huge project, huge initiative. It's been the most successful private-public partnership in 30 years. It's the largest circular economy initiative in Romania today. So there was a lot at stake. But what I will say, yes, we were put under tremendous pressure, and I fought like hell to give us the time that we needed. But what I will say is the authorities worked with us tirelessly. So they, morning, noon and night, it was, they worked.
So they
and
understood
supported.
the risk they put you at.
Absolutely.
And the
they
pressure.
Understood the risk, and we made it very clear in writing, formally, these are the risks. And they worked with us through every painful point to make sure the system was delivered, to make sure they did their part to contribute, which was fantastic. And this was good. Every party got involved and was adamant it was going to be a success.
Sitting from this chair, you make it sound very easy. Reality is not like this. It was not easy.
No, it
and I think
wasn't.
it's also important to make these people understand. And I would like to also underline something which is for me very important. These were women-driven and managed companies. I have my sense of proudness, because when you look at generally in the environmental field, there are many men, especially the technical part, or they are different because we are following, as Green Report, different kind of subjects. But when we look at waste management, and I'm looking at you, and you are a woman, having the success that you succeed to have with your team, it's something that people need to acknowledge, the effort and the determination and the capacity of dealing with all these stakeholders, letting your personal ego by side, I think. And I want to understand in more a personal touch, how was it for you?
You're absolutely right. It was predominantly women. And just a side story, I remember one of the first meetings with the Ministry of Environment, as we went in, there was Returo. We had the associations as well, the soft drinks, the brewers, and we didn't realize, but I think there was 6-7 women, and we all walked in, and just when we sat down, we looked all at one side of the table, it was all women, and we said, oh, it's all women. We never actually realized, but it was fantastic. I think one of the things from the female perspective, and I'm a real supporter of women in business and to support young girls to develop and business leaders, very, very important. But when you look at the characteristics of women in business, you have this more emotional side, to putting ego, as you say, to one side, and it's more of a people, an empathy, understanding for the environment as well, because it's a caring, it's a nature, nurture element. So I think with women, we saw the real importance of it for the generations, for children, the next generation as well. Also, women tend to be more detailed. In general, I'm very general now, generality. And here there was a lot of detail and being specific and understanding and debating openly was very important. In terms of our decision making, through all of this, one of the key elements was the decision making. And we had open debates. There was no egos, no topic was barred. Everything, and there was arguments, there was debates. It was like a family.
Different kind of arguments, different kind of interests. I can imagine a producer, retailer, government, logistics. Oh my God.
Yeah, huge arguments. But the fantastic thing was we were all aligned on the one goal. So this was good. And this is one of the things, the speed helped as well. There was no time for politics or other agendas. We had a job to do, we had to deliver, we had no choice, and it drove it through.
But you still have to run on at least 2 other years to make it mature.
Yes, we have another 2 years, yes.
Then we can fine-tune other things.
Absolutely.
But because you said it's such an important environmental project, I would like, if you can, to highlight again, to understand it very clearly, what are the positive impacts for the environment and for the society which the DRS system is bringing in Romania. Why are we doing it?
So the DRS system, what it does, it makes it easy to recycle the beverage containers here in Romania. And when we see what's the impact, we saw very early on in the system, there are no bottles at the side of the road, no containers, no bottles in the countryside, in the rivers. And it's one of the things that made us very proud, in Returo as a team and the extended team with the producers and retailers, everybody was very proud to say, you can see the visible difference. We don't have rubbish at the side of the street. It was fantastic. And the Romanian consumers, these are one of the things that they're mentioning in the research as well. So this is very visible. So the benefits for the environment is we don't have rubbish at the side of the street. We're reusing valuable materials. Instead of these materials going into landfills, going into rubbish dumps, they are now being used to produce new materials. So we're conserving the environment through that perspective. Also, we're educating the next generation. We have lots of schools coming to the factories, coming to the sorting and counting centres today. We've had it every week, every day. We have lots of kids coming, and they are so excited about it. And this is the future, and this is lovely to see as well. So it's really important for our environment for this to happen, particularly with plastic and glass, etc.
Although that we are focusing right now only on glass, aluminium, and plastic containers, we look in other systems and they look at the Tetra Pak bottles or other kind of containers. I know that needs to be a legislation or it will look into it. But do you think Returo will be able, if in the case the legislation will change and it will take time, it will be something that we'll need also to look at, will be able to put new kind of containers into the system to collect them?
So Returo has been set up by the beverage, by the soft drinks, the brewers, and these are the companies and these are the producers that finance it, okay? And our remit is around these beverage containers. But the important thing is we see that this system is a success. We see what Romania can move from somewhere at the very bottom of the recycling rates to make a complete step change to be one of the leaders. We can see that Romania can do that. So what this does, it gives the courage, the lessons to set up other systems or extend systems to cover other materials for recycling.
With this optimistic approach that you are having, I can just say thank you so much, Gemma Webb, for this amazing discussion. And I wish you a lot of luck for 2025. We will definitely watching what you are doing and do our part in collecting our kind of and bring our kind of cans to the reverse vending machine. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I just say a word of thanks, first of all, to everybody who's involved in the system, the producers, the retailers, the authorities, communication channels, the Romanian citizens, because these are the real heroes to the Returo team. And also a personal word of thank you. And I'm really honored to be part of this and to be accepted in running this project.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Acum că am ajuns la finalul acestui episod al podcastului Green Report, nu rămâne decât să mulțumesc partenerii noștri de la Returo. Dacă v-a plăcut acest episod, vă invit să dați like și share.